have you ever been in that situation where you get on stage, you start speaking, either, and you notice people are not interested? I think that could be the first sign of rejection, that either people are not, people are rejecting you, or people are not interested in the topic that you want to talk about too.
Okay.
And how do you navigate that?
Hey boss, there's an event I went to, and then I was speaking, and I think people misinterpreted. I was talking about ladies and makeup, and people got angry. People got angry, man. It was a dinner, so 100% everyone is in. Everyone had put makeup, and I was explaining, and then people began literally like switching off on their phones. I have seen it happening. So there are 4 ways of conquering that.
Welcome back to another episode of Careers with Nelly, the podcast where we have conversations about job search strategies, career growth, and we have workplace conversations that shift the way we do things, of course, to build workplaces where we don't survive but we thrive, and also to help you build a rewarding and fulfilling career. Today's conversation is an amazing one because we are going to talk about the power of public speaking, how as professionals we can leverage public speaking to help us build great careers, and of course to help us succeed in the marketplace. But before I get into the nitty-gritties of the topic of today's conversation, guys, let me let my guest introduce himself first. So, how are you?
Thank you so much.
Nice to meet you.
Thank you for inviting me.
And thank you so much.
And I appreciate the work that you're doing.
Thank you.
My name is Walubengo. I'm a speech trainer. I'm the founder of I Speak Society. I'm an author. And above everything else, my calling is in the area of mindset, identity, and culture. And I believe we'll have a culture-shaping conversations with Nelly. I've checked the work she's been doing and the impact, it's massive. So let's add even more into that impact that she's already done. And I'm so happy to be here.
Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you. And thank you so much for coming, honoring the invite.
Yes.
So guys, I know Hinn is not a new face to most of you. And of course, even before I introduce the topic, I know most of you are already guessing. So today's conversation is revolving around public speaking. And we are bringing it down to public speaking, especially in the workplace, in the corporate world. So we want to have a conversation on how professionals can leverage the power of public speaking to shape your careers, to build those rewarding and fulfilling careers, and of course, for success in the marketplace. All right, so to start this discussion, I'll just give it back to you again to start us back to who you are, of course, just to help the audience, people who've never seen you before, to know who you are, your background, where are you coming from.
Thank you. My name is Walubengo. I'm a speaker, I'm a speech trainer, the founder of I Speak Academy and I Speak Society, where we train people in public speaking, mastery, networking skills, negotiation skills, amongst other soft skills. And in terms of my background, I've been raised in Kenya. Specifically, I grew up in a place called Lakisama. Then later on, now I moved out of my parents' house, and I decided now to begin, life and to begin building the vision. And it's been a great experience, especially navigating different spaces at a young age. Wrote my first book at 19. And after that, that's when now the whole journey in terms of the corporate world began. That's when I got my first speaking engagement to speak to a board of a group of directors. It was a circle called New 40 Circle in Nanyuki, and it was a very interesting experience. And from then I began, building the capacity, also through mentorship by a number of people who are very key in terms of shaping my perspectives. Dr. Wale, PLO Lumumba, Kamau Karioki, Pastor T, Ambassador Josephine Ojiambo. I can credit it to a number of people who really shaped my perspective in life, how I see things, and they helped me to cut through time, something that maybe can take someone 10 years, at least I've been able to navigate different spaces. I've done now 5 years in terms of public speaking professionally. I'll be hitting my 5th year this year. That's half a decade. And now in terms of speaking generally, I've now done 12 years of speaking, because I began at the age of 13. I began at the age of 13, or yes, it was in class 7. Now it will be how many years? I think 11. Yes, 11 years of public speaking. So it's been an interesting experience, just, navigating the different corridors. And I can't wait to answer the questions, or rather have a conversation in terms of what does public speaking mean in terms of the workplace. Because I think you'll realize that the culture of public speaking is different. There's a different aspect of public speaking to networking. There's a different aspect of public speaking to negotiation skills, and then now there's a different aspect of public speaking in terms of the corporate space. So let's go.
All right, thank you so much for that. And I think your introduction is actually informing my next question. You know, you've talked about starting to speak at the age of 13. Some of us at the age of 13, we couldn't even face, you know, we couldn't even face people. We couldn't even speak for ourselves.
Yes.
So how did it all begin? I mean, what is the influence behind your ability to begin speaking at the age of 13? Because that's still a very young person.
Well, I can say, actually, in Africa, that's a young person.
Yeah.
But now, from a global standpoint, kids actually begin public speaking at the age of 4. The age of 4, the age of 5, kids are taught how to speak. When you check even the World Scholars curriculum, like right now I'm training kids who are 8 years old, 9 years old, in a school called Arclight. I've trained Crawford. I've worked with various schools, sharpening kids, Brayside, Lavington. And you find these kids are 8 years old, 9 years old. So I can say it's very relative when you bring in the aspect of age. But what I can say was an influencing factor. One, my parents, my dad was a debater in high school. Although he never made it to higher levels in terms of public speaking, I think he was passionate about communication in general. My mother was a history teacher. So she was also very passionate about things to do with history, things to do with Pan-Africanism. I remember at that young age, I couldn't miss watching news. So to some degree, current affairs shaped my foundation of public speaking. Initially, I can't say that I was a speaker from the onset. I was more of a person who was passionate about current affairs, things to do with politics. I knew the Attorney General. I knew the different members of Parliament. There are a number of things that I knew which were not so typical for a young person. And now it's like it planted a seed of curiosity for me to want to know more, than just speaking. And now I began sharpening my skills from that aspect. Then also the other thing was also the kind of schools I went to. My mother was very intentional, specifically for her. Both of them were intentional, but my mother, I think, because of her background in terms of education, she really wanted me to go to private schools. And these private schools, to some degree, also nurtured my aspects and perspectives in life. Even the school that I went to and I spoke at first was called ICFM.
So you studied in a private school?
Yes.
Okay.
ICFM Dreamland. It was a missionary school. And in that school, to some degree, they encouraged a lot of young people, standing before people, either in terms of preaching, Bible presentations. So to some degree, there were also activities that led to all these things. I also had an uncle who used to write a lot of poetry. On my mom's side, his name was Ladan. So he also influenced a lot in terms of communication. Sometimes he would even correct me in terms of pronunciation. This is how you say words. Then on the other side, also had an uncle who was a politician. So to some degree also, I saw him a lot speaking before people. It shaped a number of things, because naturally I can say I was very political from a young age. So my political interest began to actually come out very early. I ran for school president in primary school. That's after doing the public speaking contest. So to some degree I can say there are a number of things that I think one led to another. They were piecing up, and now they began to nurture that thing by the way you can be able to speak. So there's a natural ability that God gave me, but there are also activities that I can say forced that out to actually come out. Okay. Yes.
So of course yours now, maybe yours comes out like a natural ability that God gave you, the environment that you grew up in. So do you think public speaking is an ability that someone is born with, or can anyone develop skills for public speaking? I wasn't born a public speaker.
Yes.
Maybe at the age of 13, I could not even stand in front of people and speak.
There are 4 ways to look at it. One, there are people who've been born naturally as communicators. Because let's assume a child is growing up in a background where their parents are speaking in English, their dad is a lawyer, maybe the mom works in media. There's a natural aspect of communication, not public speaking. Because there's a difference between communication and public speaking. You can be a good communicator, but you're not a good public speaker. Because public speaking is both an art and a science. So by virtue of background, this person can be a good communicator, which people can actually think you're a good speaker. Because when that person speaks, there's an ability that is developed by the virtue of being in a certain environment. The second level, there are people who are now born with that gift I call charisma. But you can have the charisma, but you don't really know how to package it as a public speaker. There are people, when they talk, you feel like listening to them over and over again. I'll give you examples, like Salasia. Salasia, when he talks, you just want to laugh. You just want to listen to him. That guy has something I call natural charisma. He's not gone to school. He's not read books. That's natural charisma. Now, when you have natural charisma, you might find that to some degree, people can actually give you their attention even more than this other person who's a good communicator. The third person is a person who was nurtured into leadership. Let's say as a child, you become a prefect. Or in church, now like you, I feel like people like you have that thing. Or in church, for example, you're given opportunities of leadership early. Yeah. There's a way in which it forces that aspect of, I must step up. So you'll begin talking beyond your age. You'll begin speaking to a certain depth. Yeah. The fourth kind of a person is a person now who has been trained. So all these four people, the dynamics are very different. So you might find for me, like I had that natural charisma, but I had not been trained on a number of things. So it was just raw charisma. By having raw charisma, now what did I need? I needed now to be trained to read books, meet orators, understand structure, understand now that aspect of packaging and all those things. So for this other person who's a good communicator, for them what they need now is more exposure and to be sharpened to build that capacity. For someone like you, what they need, you need to meet someone who can now challenge you, right? So that now you move out of the shell of speaking because of either leadership or because of a responsibility. Now you begin to speak from a place of passion and a place of conviction. So all these people, their dynamics are very different. So I can say for me, I fall in the second category. There was that natural charisma, yes, but there was a lot of work that needed to be done. Yes.
So when you talk of a lot of work that needed to be done, of course, that means you've invested in mentors, you've invested in, reading books. Now talk to us about writing your book at the age of 19 and maybe how your public speaking ability influenced that.
Okay. I remember, I think when I was in Form 2, I got a book by a guy called Miles Munro, Pepe Minambo, and then my mom also brought me another book. And I began to read these books. And I began to believe that I had not seen any young person who's written a book, 16. But one day I went to Nairobi Cinema, and there was a young man called Boaz. This guy was 10 years old, and he's written a book. So this also stirred something in me. The father is called James G. Maina. So when I watched this young man, that at the age of 10, he's written a book, there's something it stirred up that this thing is actually possible. I had gone for an event and Ezekiel Mutua was there. And now they brought in this young man to share his story. And I began, it did something in me because I had a book at home, but I had not yet released it.
You'd written a book already?
Yes, I had already written a book. Okay. I already had an idea. But then when I saw him, it stirred something in me and I said, if that young man has actually done it, it means that this thing can be done early. Because initially I was to release that book later on, like when I hit like 25. But I told myself, no, this thing can actually be done early. So I went to school and I began actually planning even the book launch, during that KCSE period.
So that when you're still in high school?
Yes, I'm still in high school.
Okay.
I'm writing at the back of the book. These are the people I'll invite in the book launch because when I was in high school, I had already begun meeting people. In Form 3, I had already met PLO Lumumba, I had already met Pastor T, I had already met a number of key people. I was already sitting around, very intense mentorship. I had already met a guy called Brian Mwao, Tony Mwangi. I remember Brian Mwao gave me my first suit, double breast, blue suit. He called me to Rivers, gave me that suit. So there are a number of things that began to influence my perspectives and perceptions. Then one day, I'm just in the kitchen and I overhear my mom speaking and she's telling someone on the phone, there are 5 things you can never choose in life. Parents, background, tribe, skin color, and nationality. And I'm like, man, that's the book, Because I looked at all these things I had struggled with them. Parents, I needed acceptance in school. Sometimes I remember I would not say the truth that these are my parents, because to some degree I was in a school which was a posh school. Most of the kids, you find that their parents are members of parliament, business people. I struggled a lot with accepting where we came from. I grew up in Lakisama, but I would tell people I stay in TRM. So there was a lot of acceptance issues, So parents, then background, then tribe to some degree. People having a perception that Luyas only eat chicken and, there's a way we are. So sometimes also that stereotype, you go to a school where there are cool kids and you're ashamed to even accept your tribe. Sometimes also physical appearance. We Luyas have a nose, we are blessed with noses. Sometimes most of the people joke about even physical appearance and it affected my self-esteem. I looked at nationality. I felt like by being a Kenyan, it's a disappointment, or rather, it's a disadvantage in terms of public speaking. Someone was telling me the other day, if I was in America, by now I would be like a global speaker. But I also feel like by the fact that I was an underdog, or by the fact that I've been raised in a third world country, to some degree it made me step out. If I was born in the UK, probably I would not have written a book, or I wouldn't be thinking that I'm thinking right now. Because comfort has a sense of instant gratification where people don't really step up. You might find that if you had a studio nearly, you'll not even be doing these episodes. The fact that there's equipment that we need to get, and there's an effort I need to put, that is what is actually making you step up. And I came to realize that when you don't have an iPhone, that's when you record a lot of content. And when you get an iPhone, you stop recording content. So I struggled a lot with all these things. There was a conflict in me in terms of all these 5 factors. So I released the book also because of that. So immediately cleared high school. 2 months later, I released the book. Did the book launch. It was very easy, and it was also very interesting. I went to different hotels. I did not have a budget. My mother and father did not have the money, but they believed in me. My mom gave me 15,000, I remember, and told me, you pay the publisher, get the ISBN number, the rest will be able to fix it. I did, paid the publisher. The publisher told me, you can sort this out. And then when I paid the publisher told me, you have a balance of this amount. I told him it's okay. Went to a hotel, talked to them, they gave me the venue for free. They told me you'll pay after. And then I began inviting people. I looked for all kinds of contacts. I called State House, I called Sakaja, I called Mutula Kilonzo, I called Churchill, I called Ofweneke, I called Mainakage, I called everyone. There's a phone I was given by one of my mentors as a gift, and that phone had about 700 contacts of all the key public figures you can ever.
Phone that already has contacts.
Yes, it had all public figures, man. So it was a blessing.
Yeah.
Like it had all the public figures, members of parliament. So I could call anyone. I could call literally anyone, and just the phone would actually go through. And someone picks up and they tell them, my name is so and so, I'm doing a book launch, would you want to come? And on the day of the book launch, the wife to the governor of Bungoma showed up.
Wow.
Yeah, for me, I was in another venue in Jogorod. I'm just called and I'm told I had booked a venue of 100 people. 280 people had already arrived by 2 p.m. And I'm told there's a convoy here. The deputy governor is here. Jay Blessing is here. Monesi Musali is here. Brian Moore is here. Tony Mwangi is here. All the key people you invited have already arrived. Where are you? So I take a bike quickly, come to town, change my suit, get into the venue. And I remember I could not even believe the whole event. I was just in tears. Even the pictures, when you look at them, they were not so good, because the whole event, I was just in tears. I was not believing what is actually happening. I can say my journey began that day. As I've just said that, I felt like something. I felt goosebumps. So like that day something started. Something started in my life. Like something changed in my life that specific day. Because I remember just sitting down and people were giving speeches. Brian Moore would come, Tony Mwangi would come, and these guys are speaking and they're saying, Ben, we can't wait to see the next 3 years. We can't wait to see the next 2 years. This man will be great. It's like men were pouring seeds. Then after the book launch, Pastor T came in. He came in a bit late because I think he had a mechanical whatever. But he said, me, I've just come to cut the cake and to celebrate you. When the event ended, we were walking out, and we were the two of us. No one was around. I was taking him to the parking. I remember Pastor T said something so deep. He said, now we will no longer clap for you for writing a book. Yes. He said, you've already proven that it is possible.
Yes, yeah.
And he told me, men don't clap for you for the same thing twice. And it changed my perspective. And he told me, also, we will not treat you as a young man. We will treat you as a system. That's what he told me. So it changed my perspective, and it made me look at things differently and understand where I've been called to become and what I've been called to do. Yes.
Wow. So you've talked about perception, and I believe that is what most people struggle with. Your background, where you're coming from, your skin color, the language that you speak, your tribe and all that. And I just want to understand, and of course for any professional who's watching this, how have you been able to deal with perception, especially when on stage? When speaking to people, it could be about age. Of course, I've heard you speak about your age so many times. Age can be used against you. Your tribe can be used against you. How have you managed to overcome perception? Judgment from perception when on stage?
Perception comes from a number of things. I call them the 3 C's. It comes from capacity, competence, and credibility. That's where perception comes from. So there's a place where capacity can compensate in terms of perception. There's a place where competence can compensate. There's a place where credibility also compensates. So I begin to ask myself, this is a question I always tell every person who is a public speaker to ask themselves, what is my disadvantage? And even I'll tell you to ask yourself that as Nelly, what's your disadvantage? Because if you don't know what's your disadvantage, to some degree, you might struggle with a number of things. Like for me and you, I have 3 disadvantages. 1, I am young. 2, I don't have the money. 3, I don't have the access that I need with the corporates that I need to penetrate. Now, let me break it down. Age, it means that my credibility will be doubted. Remember the 3 C's?
Yes.
So by the fact of age, credibility is doubted. 2, by fact of money, it means that capacity can also be doubted. Because for you to be invited as a speaker, it doesn't even take many things. The quality of your videos, the quality of your pictures, the events that you go to, who has endorsed you, the quality of your books. Are your books off-white? Like in terms of the pages, you find that other pages are white, but the global standard of books, if you've read these books by global speakers like John C. Maxwell, you'll find that the page looks a bit golden.
Yeah.
The quality of your pages. Do you have a brand manager? Can you send a proposal? How does your personal profile look like? How many countries have you covered? There are about 21 questions for you to be able to step up into the global stage. What's your level of solid influence? Have you ever gathered people physically on ground in events? Liquid influence. Liquid influence is influence with the influential. How many thought leaders have endorsed you? Atmospheric influence. Do you have influence on social media? And what caliber of influence do you have on LinkedIn, on Instagram, on TikTok, on Facebook? The caliber of endorsement. So that's where money comes in for any person who's a speaker or any person who's a communicator. Even in the corporate world, for you to be chosen as a CEO, there are a number of things that count. Even the phone that you're using can also count. How you've packaged yourself can also count in terms of dressing, variety. All those things really count. The events that you attend as a speaker, every month should not end if you've not attended like 3 events, like top tier events, like yesterday in Westlands. It's going on even right now. There's a conference called the Africa Soft Power Summit. It's a conference for different groups of people who are thought leaders from diplomacy spaces, fashion, entertainment, food, and all that. But it's a top tier event. That event is $300 a ticket. That's about 35,000.
Yeah.
So by lacking money, money contributes into capacity. Number 3 is competence. When you're lacking the right networks, because what really brings competence, whatever contributes in terms of competence, is a whole aspect of brand endorsement, the places you've stepped into, like speaking at KQ. To some degree, it affected how my brand is perceived.
Yes.
Or speaking in some real estate companies. So competence also is measured by that. So if you're lacking the right access or the right networks that you need, to some degree, it can also hinder that aspect of competence. So for me, I had to analyze what are the gaps that are there. Age, the aspect of credibility, and all that. So I began to work on those 3 C's. Capacity. I began to invest in terms of the resources that are needed for my brand as a person. Someone said that invest in yourself, someone else will pay for it. So I had to deliberately invest, like the suit. Every quarter, first quarter of the year, I invest at least 100,000 on suits, deliberately. Because that thing also contributes in terms of how your brand is perceived. I deliberately invest in shoes. I'll deliberately invest in watches. I'll deliberately invest in colognes. What people see on stage is only like 20%. There is a whole 80 other percent. For me to concentrate in an event and to think of how I'll be creative, there's a driver that has been employed. There's a social media manager. I can't be going in an event and focusing on how I take pictures. So in my mind concentrates. It's called lesser focus, or rather tunnel focus, where I am focusing on the message and the message only. There's someone who's handling the social media. There's someone who's helping me to handle the calls. There's someone who's driving me to the venue. There's someone who's handling sales for the books. So when I'm in a venue, I am present 100%. So I'm not too distracted. You can't expect to deliver at a certain depth when you're the one who's washing your clothes.
And doing everything.
Yes. So there are things that you have to stop doing and only do what really matters. That's why now money is important. For anyone who wants to build their capacity, or even anyone who wants to become a good speaker, whatever you want to be good at, money is really important. Because if you do many things, you're washing your clothes, you're the one who's cooking, to some degree, you might not be able to concentrate on what you need to concentrate on.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Yeah.
So for you to be top tier, even as a photographer, check the highest paid photographers across the world. You'll realize there are things they don't really do. The goal is to beat time. Because Nelly, if you have 50 years on earth, half of the years are spent sleeping. At least 12 hours a day in the life of a human being are inactive. You are sleeping, then you wake up, do a number of things. So that means that you only have 25 years alive. 25 years, remember, that out of 25, 16, you're in school. So that means really you have 9 years of productivity. You have 9 years to clear personal poverty and generational poverty and affect the nations. So that means that we don't have time. We really have to build a system that will multiply time and be able to beat time, so that we're able to do the things we need to do. We have podcasts to listen to, documentaries, we have books to read. Yeah.
Wow. That's quite insightful, because I think identity is one thing that most people struggle with. You're getting on the stage and you're thinking of how people will perceive you because of where you come from. Thank you so much for that. So my next question will be about, I've seen you talk in different stages. I've seen you talk to the young people. I've seen you talk in church. I've seen you talk to corporates. I've seen you talk to different audiences. So how do you how do you fit in all this as a speaker? What work really goes behind your ability to fit in different types of audiences? And an aspiring speaker there, someone in the corporate space, in the corporate space we have different spaces where you speak in. You'll be speaking in conference, in town halls, in boardrooms. So generally, how does someone grow that ability to speak in or speak to different audiences?
It's about mastery. Paul says, to Gentiles I became a Gentile. To Jews I became a Jew. To everyone I became everything, to bring them under the law. So it's about mastery. Studying different spaces and then camouflaging to it. So mastery helps you to be able to connect and pick up the languages of people. Every human being has something called languages and lineages. That right now you have a language and you have a lineage that you subscribe to. That's why you'll find that whoever listens to me will also listen to someone like Vusi, will also listen to someone like a lady called Nangami. You'll find that there's always a similarity and congruence in terms of the caliber of speakers we listen to, depending on the language and lineage. So when I go in a place, I pick up the language of these people. Because even in schools, there's a disparity. Like last week, I was speaking in Nova Academy. It's an international school. This is how kids are in terms of background, in terms of perceptions of life, global perspectives. Then at the same time, I was also called in Moi Girls Senior. Tomorrow I'll be speaking in Moi Girls, Nairobi. Then you'll find me in a day school next week, again speaking. So I have to pick up quickly languages and lineages, master relatability, and study human behavior. So I can say what has really enabled me, two things. One is studying human psychology, understanding how human beings think and how they perceive.
Have you formally done psychology?
No, I just study people. I was called in Daystar actually to study psychology, but I changed it to international relations. But I believe human psychology is a natural phenomenon that everyone should just study, So like I've studied a lot of human psychology and human behavior. I'm able to see things that people are not able to see. So it really helps me in terms of public speaking. It helps me to be alert. I study a lot of great people. By studying them, I don't mean that I study their story. I study how they sit. I study how they talk. I study how they respond. I study their wives. I study their children. I study where they stay. I study all those things, The closer I come to them, the more I study. I'm able to look at them in their eyes So the closer I get to a great person, like I remember when I met Vusi, I sat with across for 4.5 hours, and the whole time I was not talking. I was looking at him. I was able to see things
Looking at
beyond.
what exactly?
Just looking at him and studying him. Even you, I'm studying you. Like as I'm speaking, it's a natural thing. Like I'm able to pick up so many things
Yeah.
by just studying people. Like I can look at a person for 6 hours and I'm able to see so many things. I'll look at their eyes, I'll look at the sitting posture. When you look in a person, you're able to study so many things. You'll study postures, you'll study how they respond, you'll study how they laugh. And you're able to see so many things that are actually unsaid, because communication is 40% words, 60% what is not being said.
Yes.
So human psychology really helps me a lot to penetrate spaces. I study color psychology. For example, colors really represent a lot of things. Like you'll find in this room, all of you are in black. And everyone has something black. You know, that's how powerful it is. Because, and I always, every room I go to, I always tell people, you'll find yourself with a black thing, because black is a color that stands for acceptance. So every time you're going for an interview, always have something black. Whether it's a tie, whether it's a shirt, whether it's a coat. To some degree, black is an acceptable color, subconsciously. Without even being told.
In
Every
Africa
human,
or globally?
globally, every human being. It's a color that stands for acceptance. So you find that there is a way in which also colors communicate, that it's important for you to study colors and their meaning. It's important for you to study handshakes. It's important for you to study sitting position. It's important for you to study the speed by which people talk. It's important for you to study what people even order. When you want go to a restaurant and then someone takes 20 minutes to order food, it says something about their leadership, you know? One day, a CEO in Microsoft called two guys. They had passed an interview in a managerial position, and he was conflicted on who to choose. So he called this guy for breakfast, two of them. So they sat across the table and they found coffee. Then he told them, let's have coffee. Then one guy added sugar, even without tasting. This other guy tasted, then he added sugar. Then he said, I'll pick the guy who tasted before he added sugar. Because he said, at the highest level in leadership, we don't look at your CV. We look at your ability to be sensitive and to see things that are not seen. And the fact that this other guy added sugar before he tasted says that he's not sensitive. Because in the highest level of leadership, they need you to learn how to make decisions. Also, there's a guy who went to a restaurant with 3 people who are supposed to be chosen in a job. The first guy, when he arrived, even before he looked at the menu, he said, I want this. The second guy read the menu, then ordered. The third guy took 20 minutes until all the other food was served. Then he ordered.
You said, give me like that one.
Yes. Now, if you're the CEO, who could you have picked?
I would have picked the one who ordered before looking at the menu, because it shows me that they know what they want.
It shows the power of decisions.
Yes.
Exactly. You understand? Because indecisiveness is still failure. Yes. Because this other guy, it means that the last guy who everyone ordered, it means that he will listen to every opinion before making a decision.
Yeah. Yes.
This second guy, it means that he will take a lot of time before making a decision. This first guy already knows what's supposed to be done. So even if he will talk to the waiter, he already knows what needs to be done. That's the power of leadership.
Wow.
Such a small thing can say quite a lot. Let me tell you another one. Never text a client when a client texts you. Call them. If someone texts you, call them immediately. Okay. By calling, you're increasing the frequency of decisions. If that conversation could have taken 1 week, let's say my brother here as a videographer, someone texts you and says, I want a wedding shoot. How much will you charge? Instead of texting, that conversation can take 3 days. You can call in 3 minutes. You can kill everything. And always remember, there are 4 things that persuade people. Your voice, your track record, your speed of speech, and your personality in terms of persuasion. Those 4 things are very key. Now, your voice, to some degree, compared to texting, your voice can speed up things. For example, there's a difference between doing a virtual meeting and doing a physical meeting. Do you know why there are no virtual dates? Do you know even why people go for dates? It's not at your own food home, that your guy has now called you to buy for you food. It's because when you meet someone physically, trust is built when I see you physically, or when do you know why people greet each other as the first thing when they meet people? It's the first sign of trust. Because trust happens in 4 levels. greeting, smiling. Then when someone laughs, like it goes with intensity. Then when someone gifts. I want you to go and study trust. And one day we can have that conversation on how trust is built and how trust is lost. By just communication. Like trust is something that is so deep. So when you text someone, and then when someone texts you and then you call them immediately, there's something that it does immediately. If that conversation could have taken 1 week, it can take 3 minutes and you've finished it. Even I tell my team, never tell a client send me a message. Call them.
So the decision is made quicker.
The decision is made quickly.
Trust is also
Yes.
built faster.
Instead of a client telling you, I'll come and see you after 2 weeks, ask them, where are you? If they're around Nairobi, tell them, I'll come. I'm coming to see you. Yes. Because remember, it's not about money. It's about beating time again. There's a difference between me giving you 100 shillings at 8 a.m. and 100 shillings at 5 p.m.
What's the difference?
Time. This other person has time to multiply. Let's say, for me as an author, right? If you give me 100,000 right now, I print 1,000 copies of books and I'm speaking in an event tomorrow. You've not given me 100,000. Because in that event, I can sell books worth 1 million. Does that make sense? Yeah. So you've not given me 100,000 really. Now, if you give me 100,000 next week and the event was tomorrow, I'm speaking to 1,000 parents in a certain school. To some degree, I've not yet beaten time. Like, it's not about money. There's a book I'm reading called Customer Funded Businesses. And it talks about that aspect of getting money early enough. For example, Airbnb takes your money first before they give you a service. So it gives them time to multiply. That's what also the bank does. The bank stays with your money, invests with your money, then they give you back.
Wow.
You get? So the goal of communication is also to speeden up investment, to speeden up growth. Because the faster you are at communicating, you'll not be late for things in life. You'll not be late in terms of relationships. Nearly ask yourself, how many people have told you, I'll meet you. There are many. Those are opportunities that are being lost. Could it be that you did not know an aspect of communication that quickened up things? When you reach out to your videographer, then he tells you, I'm only available on Saturday. It's maybe that you've not yet mastered negotiation skills. So you have to play along his time. Yeah. But if you could have mastered negotiation skills, you could have won him. When you go to buy a suit and the guy insists the suit is 10,000 and you have 7,000, and then you say, Nisawa, I'll buy it some other day. Then you're going for an event and you don't make a powerful impression. You lost it because you did not know how to win an argument. You had not yet studied human psychology. When you go somewhere and you don't have an ID and you're going to meet a CEO, the security guard tells you stand here for 2 hours. You're losing an impression with this CEO. Well, you could have mastered how to study inferiority complex. That when you meet a security guard, don't call them watchman or call them security, call them chairman. You know, yes. So like you must understand these things. You must study human perception. You must study inferiority complex. You must study superiority complex. That when you meet great people always greet you like this and they'll turn their hand. They want to make an impression. Firm handshake. You know? Now if they greet you that way and you also do this, there's something you're doing even without you knowing. That when you go eat someone who's above you in a restaurant, you let them order first.
Oh, okay.
Then you order. Now these things no one will teach you in any school. That when your boss greets you, you stand. These are things that are very key, but they have made people lose opportunities in the corporate world. There's something also
called...
So
when your boss greets you...
you just stand.
You need to stand.
Yes, just stand.
So if
stand
your boss
and
walks into your office like more than 10 times in a day, how many times are you going to stand?
It depends. Now they use wisdom. Because it is not static, right? You get. Like it's something that the action should actually guide you. Does that make sense? So all these things are very important. And there are 3 rules in public speaking, or rather in communication: unspoken rules, spoken rules, and customized rules. Spoken rules are the ones that are obvious. Like when we began the show, we introduced ourselves. But there's also something called unspoken rules that we can't tell each other. That there are rules which are unwritten, but you break them, there are consequences. For example, you don't talk to a police officer when you're in your car, you come outside. Na usimwekee mkono samosa. You get? That police officer will frustrate you. That if you want to talk to a police officer quickly, alight from the car, and don't alight as 2 people or 3. Just alight as 1 person. Talk fast before they talk. Control the conversation. Tell them something that doesn't make sense. Afisa weni kama tulisoma nawe shuleni. Ulienda shule gani? Christmas ilikuwaje? Ask them very foolish things. The goal is to make them forget that they are police officer, remind them they are human beings.
Forget the offense.
Yes. And remind them that they are human beings before being a cop. Wow. Then talk quickly. accept your mistake, stop defense, just say afisa naona tumefanya makosa, lakini wewe ni rafiki yangu, mimi napitanga nje, nimekuona hapa before na unafanya good job, you guys are going far, na mwambie mimi ndapita hapa, wacha nikimbie, sasa naenda shughuli, align it with vision, show them the bigger picture. Mimi ndapita hapa, mimi nafanya kazi hapa kwa hiyo ofisi na najua tutakutana, wewe ni ndugu yangu, personalize it, and then msalimia haraka kama umerudi kwa gari, and you'll go. That's what I do.
Okay.
I have never sijaipanga laini. Even when I go to immigrations for my passport, I just held the hand of a police officer who was passing, nikaruka watu 90, nikamwambia unaendelea juu unapenda donut ama chapati, and then they're asking me donut ama chapati, mimi napenda scones, mimi sipendi yenye umesema, and as we are talking he's laughing na tunaruka watu, and then I went and sat now as the next person being called next. I was late for exams. I did not want to bribe, because I knew if I bribe again I'll have to bribe again and again and again. I saw, what do? Let me just talk to this cop, go hold his hand, vuka laini, do what I need to do. You get? Yes. No. It's something that I believe in. Like, money will not buy everything. There are places where your negotiation skills will buy things. There are places where your storytelling ability will buy things. Unfortunately, we are so accustomed to money that even we believe that money, people even say money is everything. Money can buy everything. Yeah. But what if you meet someone who has money?
I don't know.
You get? Yeah. So there are people who money doesn't really shake them. Yeah. Their problem is not money. Yes. By God's grace, I have reached some of the highest ranks even in terms of training, including training the daughter of the president of Kenya. The one day she told me, Benny, cars don't intimidate me. Like if a man buys for me a car, that doesn't really intimidate me. Or rather, it's not something that can really impress me. Now, you meet such a person, you're a man who is accustomed to buying for girls' chips, and girls are carried away. To some degree, you might be intimidated. Yeah. So there are people who are not really swayed by money, or they are not swayed by titles. When you go to speak in schools like Braeburn, these kids, their parents are billionaires. You can be talking, you're saying how you have a PhD and they're all sleeping. When you go to a national school, that's what will excite them. Their PhD, whatever. But when you go to these international schools, kids they care less. Because the sister is a photographer and she's wealthy. She doesn't have your PhD. The sister is into food and whatever. And she's wealthy. So there are kids who are not really pleased by titles. It doesn't really shake them. That's why you'll see a Gen Z walking out in a meeting and they don't really care. These are CS who is talking to them. They don't really care or rather value titles. So there's something called also generational conversation. And one day you and I can talk about generational barrier even in terms of the corporate culture, where Gen Z is resigning. Because when you get to understand that Gen Zs don't really value, they're not like millennials, where they value salary, they value promotion. For them, they value a place where there's authenticity, there's connection, because there's also something called generational conflict. The baby boomers valued titles. The Gen X, to some degree, valued social status, you know. The millennials valued comfort in terms of flexibility. 8 to 5, I have an insurance, I have a car, I've been given a house here in Kilimani or Kileleshwa. They value such. For the Gen Zs, they grew up seeing that their parents had these things and they were still fighting. Wow. They grew up seeing that their parents had this and they still had blood pressure because of the boss. So to them, they don't really value that. You'll find a Gen Z coming to work and he's not really under pressure, and they'll tell you, man, like there's something beyond. They want a place where there's a family, where there's brotherhood, where there are authentic conversations, where they can be told the truth, where there's love, where there's growth. And they know what growth means. And they know growth is not salary. They know that salary cannot make me a billionaire. They know that as the truth. Your generation, what was told, you work hard, you'll get a good salary and get a better life. Our generation, we grew up listening to songs that says vision, build a vision. So you'll see a Gen Z living and you'll not care. You employ them as a photographer, they tell you, me at a stucky your job. Because they're looking at how you're talking to them more than anything else. Even at work, my team will tell me, talk to me like this. They'll tell you openly. They'll tell you, me, I want you to correct me like this. Or I prefer you could have addressed me this way. There's a way they'll tell you that. And I came to realize, for them now, they value life beyond salary. There are some even people in my team who tell me, I can do without salary. For me, I am here beyond salary. It's not about salary. There's something big I'm receiving. So also that generational aspect is key.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. Now about ability to speak, especially speaking up. I think I'm in the corporate space, and one thing that most people struggle with is speaking up for themselves, you know, and even ability just to speak in front of people. So what, in your own experience with public speaking and all that, and the ability to speak, do you think professionals who are not able to speak are advantage when it comes to career growth or even success, at disadvantage rather, in the corporate space?
There are 4 kinds of leaders in corporate: basic, average, distinct, and alpha. Basic, it means that you only work. To some degree, you don't have a personality. you only work and you're done, right? Like you only do what you're supposed to do. That means you're a basic human being. You'll never stand out that way, but you can be promoted slowly, because also the world loves basic people, because basic people don't ask questions, they don't challenge anyone, and they're not hated by anyone. But you'll move slowly, you'll never be noticed. Average, it means that you're playing in between. You don't necessarily intimidate people, but to some degree you're this person who, you know how to flow. You are part of the winning team. When there's a winning project, your name can be mentioned. You did not pioneer it, but you're part of it. So average people look for powerful people, then they align with them. The average people are the ones who survive to some degree in the corporate world in Kenya, because they know how to camouflage. They are not in corporate politics, but to some degree they are also in it. So they are playing the role of the middle center, and sometimes it can work. Then there's a third kind of a person, alpha. These are the people who stand out from the onset. They are hated. They are hated because they speak well, they ask questions in meetings, they read books. These are the people who go to networking meetings. Quote unquote, these are the people who qualify to be like CEOs or the head of sales in a team. To some degree, they're always in trouble, even with bosses, because they intimidate their bosses. Now, an alpha needs to know how to master that aspect of playing along, or that aspect of making people feel comfortable when they are around them. The average person needs to step up. Every person to some degree needs to balance up their power. Then there's a distinct leader. These ones, they don't really talk. They're not known for talking, but they are performers. Now, a distinct leader should know how to express their performance, because there are people who are high performers, but they don't know how to express it through words. An alpha knows how to express it through words, but they may not be a performer. They just know how to gather people, hype people, and then to look like they're the ones who did it. The average person is always lost in the crowd, but to some degree, yes, number last, na yesi wa kwanza. They're just somewhere. They are part of the winning team. The basic person is lost totally. So one has to study all these things. Now, when you talk too much in the corporate, to some degree, it can be confused. So you must be able to know how to balance up that. And also at the same time, when you're a timid person, you can also lose opportunities. So that balance is key. Know when to talk, because we say public speaking is what you say, how you say, when you say, to whom you say, and why you say. So when timing is also key. Perfect.
I'll ask you the last question.
Yes.
My last question is about rejection.
Rejection.
Yeah, and have you ever been in that situation where you get on stage, you start speaking, either, and you notice people are not interested? I think that could be the first sign of rejection, that either people are not, people are rejecting you, or people are not interested in the topic that you want to talk about too. And how do you navigate that?
Hey boss, there's an event I went to, and then I was speaking, and I think people misinterpreted. I was talking about ladies and makeup, and people got angry. People got angry, man. It was a dinner, so 100% everyone is in. Everyone had put makeup, but I was just talking about self-esteem, and I was talking about that aspect of there are people who cannot do anything without makeup. You see, like the way sometimes you can record a video randomly. So I was saying that there are people who cannot do that, and I was explaining, and then people began literally like switching off on their phones. So there are 4 things you can do at that moment. Now there's also rejection that comes because of ego. Boss, I've ever gone to a room to talk to CEOs and everyone is on their phone. 10 minutes, no one is looking at me. I have seen it happening. So there are 4 ways of conquering that. 1, track record. What's track record? Mentioning who you are and the battles you've conquered. One of my mentors, Dr. Wale, told me a story that he went to an event. It was a global event where it was a big Fortune 500 company. So they had called different speakers to talk to these people. Now the speaker who came before him, when he was speaking on stage, those guys told him, stop. You don't know what you're doing. They told him, we will not ask you for the money we've given you. They had paid $10,000 per speaker. They said, you just go home. Imagine it's a 3 days training. Your wife knows that you had gone for 3 days and you come back tomorrow. They said, you just go back home. We don't even want the money that we gave you. Just go home. You don't know what you're saying. Now imagine you're the next speaker after such a guy. So Dr. Wale comes in the room and says, last week I was at the United Nations. Today morning I was just speaking to the president, and I've created time to speak to you. So I'm the biggest in this room, and I expect all of you to listen to me because I know presidents, and none of you knows presidents. Then they laughed, and that's how they listened to him. So their one track record is a powerful thing. That's why I tell people, work on yourself. Moses must see the burning bush before he meets Pharaoh. David must kill the bear and the lion before he meets King Saul, and before he meets Goliath. Yeah. So track record is one of the things. 2, master humor. Many people don't know how to use humor. In spaces where there is rejection, humor can also be a thing, because people can be projecting to you. Maybe the CEO has just spoken and he has abused them. Then you're the next speaker on stage. So people are shut down. Master humor. 3, master empathy and human connection. Learn to master good words, soft words, like kindly, thank you so much. Just listen to me for a minute. Then 4, master content. Mastery beats biases. Yeah.
Wow, thank you. So just as we come to the end, of course, just the conversation was revolving around how professionals can leverage the power of public speaking, or the ability to speak for success in the corporate world, or even in careers. So just as a parting shot, as we come to the close, I just want you to look at the camera.
Yes.
And just give your last words.
Thank you so much, man. We'll come again. We'll have a conversation on negotiation skills and anxiety, because people don't know even how to negotiate in interviews. Yeah. So I'll come again with Madame here, and we have something. But this is what I'll say. I'll say, work on yourself and build your capacity so much that you're so good that no one can say no.
Wow.
Yes. Like, be outstanding. When they sit, I stand. When they stand, I stand out. And when they stand out, you put the standard.
What?
Yeah.
Okay. When they sit,
I stand.
when they stand,
You stand out.
and when they
Stand out, you put a standard.
Wow, thank you so much. Thank you so much. It was
Thank
nice.
you.
I have personally learned a lot from this conversation.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you so much
for such an insightful talk. So guys, as always, if you've come with us till this time, please don't forget to subscribe. And as my guest has said today, I will still have more of these conversations, of course, because being in the corporate space, ability to speak, even speaking up for ourselves sometimes is a great problem. So thank you so much for watching. I'll see you guys in the next video. Please remember to share this video, remember to subscribe, remember to hit that notification bell, so you always keep notified anytime I put a new video. Thank you.